All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this morning's session. Today, we're going to be discussing how to ace your graduate school application. So my name is Myra Kaufman. I'm an Associate Director for Recruiting and Admission. Also joined on this call is Brian Schutte. He's our Assistant Director for Recruiting and Admission, and he's going to be in the background answering any questions if you guys have them that you can put in the chat. This is going to be a quick session. It's only going to be 30 minutes long. We're really going to try to touch on some of the most important factors that impact a graduate school application. So that being said, we want to make sure that your questions get answered. So at any point, please feel free to put them in the chat and Brian will either answer them as we go or they will be addressed during the presentation. So he'll be in the background answering those as well. But to give you an idea of what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to briefly skim over the programs that we offer here at Gies. So you'll have a really good idea, hopefully after we finish, of maybe which program is the best fit for you at the end of the day. And then we're also obviously going to be discussing what we look for in an application. We're going to be discussing some tips and tricks for how to apply for graduate school. And then some application deadlines. Obviously, those are very important whenever it comes to, looking at graduate schools and graduate programs, some next steps. And then, of course, as I mentioned, we will be taking your questions throughout. So again, if you think of anything as we're going through, please feel free to put those in the chat bar and Brian will get to those as we're going through. So just to briefly discuss our graduate program. So at Gies College of Business, we have a really robust portfolio of graduate offerings for you guys to take a look at and to explore. So we do have two accountancy master's programs. The main thing that distinguishes the two programs is the Master of Accounting Science does require a United States undergraduate bachelor's degree in accountancy. So if you don't have that, but you want to gain experience and exposure in accountancy, or if you have an accounting bachelor's degree from another country, then you can pursue our Master of Science in Accountancy. But if you've studied accounting in the United States, you are welcome to apply to our Master of Accounting Science. That's the main difference between those two programs, essentially. Next, we have Business Analytics, Finance, Financial Engineering, Management, and Technology Management. Again, as I mentioned, it's going to be an incredibly brief overview of these programs. Each of these programs actually have program-specific webinars. So if you really want to get into detail about what each program offers, the courses, the number of, credit hours required, career outcomes for each program, stuff like that, I would highly encourage you to attend a webinar or an information session or meet with an advisor for one of those programs to really learn more about each program more specifically. But something really important to keep in mind is that all of our on-campus programs do have STEM designation. So if you are an international student and you're wanting to work in the United States after you graduate, STEM designation would allow you to work in the United States up to 3 years post-master's degree graduation. So if you did want to do that, then that STEM designation is great. We do offer 3 fully online programs as well. So our MBA program is fully online. We also offer the MSM, so management, and the MSA, the Master of Science in Accounting as well, or accountancy online as well. So diving into what is the secret of a good application. So I've taken the liberty of starting an application for you guys and kind of just taking a screenshot and really just giving you a sneak peek of what it's going to look like. So for most of our applications, they actually opened up September 1st. So you guys will be able to start applying for a lot of our programs now. If you follow us on Instagram or Facebook, you'll see that we put up a post yesterday about the application being open. So we're really excited for you guys to go in and start applying and not wait. Waiting is the not fun, gets you stressed out, gets, everything built up back on the back end. So we're excited for you guys to start your applications now. But this is what it looks like. This is an exact screenshot of what you guys will see whenever you go in. So when we look at applications, we look for your ability to be a good student. So first and foremost, that would come from academics, that would come from a GRE or GMAT score, that could come from letters of recommendation from your professors. We look for, your employability. Are you able to find a good job? And maybe that can come from your internship experience or your prior work experience, or maybe volunteer experience. We look at, can you become a successful professional? So will you be able to, compose yourself in the classroom and outside of the classroom in a professional manner? And will you become a passionate alum? And we're going to discover that hopefully through your program research, you looking into our programs and finding out what you know about us, and hopefully being excited to start a Gies graduate program. So a lot of top business programs will look for a lot of these specific areas: academics, analytics, leadership, communication, career goals, and engagement. And if they don't, well, I'm going to tell you, this is what we're looking at specifically. So, not every program is looking at these areas only. Some may have other evaluating areas, but these are going to be some of the areas that we will be looking at whenever we are evaluating candidates. And for example, some graduate programs may have acceptance areas that are different than, the fully 100% ranges for these areas. So some programs may be looking for students that have high leadership capabilities or high communication skills, but maybe lacking a little bit in their career goals. Maybe they're wanting to explore their career goals while they're in the program. And you personally may have more advanced career goals. Maybe you have higher academic, ability than the average that they admit. And maybe you have a little bit less engagement because you were more focused on your academics than you were getting involved in school. So the point of all that to say is we at Gies College of Business look at more than a perfect circle. We're looking for someone that can check a lot of boxes, but you don't have to be perfect. We're not looking for perfection. Nobody is perfect. And so what we are looking for is that someone who can be either well-rounded during the program or someone who is well-rounded prior to starting the program. So we're really, really looking for students that can really make the most out of the program. So don't worry if you're not 100% in every single one of these areas, because again, nobody is. You'd have to be an AI robot to be 100% in every single one of these areas. But we are looking for that passion, that engagement, communication skills. Really, any of these factors can make you a fantastic candidate for our graduate programs. And each of our graduate programs looks for different things. So for example, business analytics, financial engineering, maybe accounting, they're going to look for, some more analytical skills, because those are going to be some programs where you're going to need some more, technical skills, maybe some more further advanced, maybe math skills or something like that. Whereas in management or maybe MSM, take MSM management, for example. Communication skills is going to be highly, highly, highly valuable, because that program, we have the most students from different countries. It's our most diverse cohort, and we have the most students from the most undergraduate majors. So really being able to communicate across, across culturally and across disciplines is really, really going to be helpful. So just to kind of explain that a little bit further, you don't have to be perfect to be an admissible candidate. So then in talking a little bit about some of our application components, all of our applications will require these things in some way, shape, or form. And if it is optional for some, we'll discuss that. Or if it's required for certain programs, we'll also discuss that as well. But for all of our applications, you of course have to start with that online application. That initial screenshot that I shared with you, that is going to be required for every Gies graduate program that we have. We will also require a resume. And we'll discuss kind of the important facets of each of these pieces here in a moment. But we're just kind of going to breeze through what we're going to, what you're going to need to build into an application as we go through. Application essays. We all require application essays and letters of recommendation. For Master of Science in Accountancy, Business Analytics, and Finance, we will require a GRE or GMAT. But for MSA and MSBA, there are options for waivers. English proficiency tests, we do require that for most international students, depending on the country that you're from. But if you are interested in finding out if your country does have that requirement, you're more than welcome to ask Brian in the chat, and he can send you a link to find out if your country does require English proficiency tests. Most of our programs do require a video essay, so we'll discuss kind of how to do your best video essay possible, and transcripts as well. So for resumes, typically what we look for in a resume is that you limit it to one page if you have less than 5 years professional work experience. And so professional work experience is following graduation. After you have finished your bachelor's degree, we are going to be looking to see that one-page resume, because that's really going to tell us the most important information about you possible. So we really don't want to be looking through, 5, 10, page resumes when we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of applications to look at. We really, really want to be able to find the most important details about you on that first page. Make sure you highlight your contributions to that job, not necessarily just your tasks. So what did you do well? Not what you did day to day. Obviously, we all answer emails day to day. I talk with students day to day, but what was my contribution to that company that made me stand out? And I highly recommend, if you're not from the United States, look up some United States resume formatting tips. They're all over the internet. You can easily find them. So I would highly recommend that you look into that because that's going to really be helpful in being able to figure out what we're looking for. And when we're talking about those evaluating areas, if we go back to that slide that had that diagram, resume is a great way to show your ability in academics, leadership, and engagement. We want to recommend that you avoid formats like this with pictures, with lots of colors and kind of the kind of strange formatting. We want just the straightforward up and down what you did, because not only does this not give us a lot of information, it really just doesn't do a lot for you. So, we're missing a lot of vital information. Obviously, if you're coming from a different country, we know you speak that language, right? So there's a lot of things that is missing on these resumes that the student is missing out. So definitely try to avoid formats like this whenever you're applying. Academic and personal statements. The top secret, tip I can give for you on this is to answer the questions that are asked and adhere to the word limits. And those may seem like the most easy questions. You're like, wow, I attended this entire webinar just for those answers. But really, that is what we're looking for. A lot of times students think that we're looking for, some secret meaning in their essays, but really we are just wanting you to answer the questions that are asked. Because again, like I said, when you have hundreds and hundreds of applications to read, the last thing we want to do is try to find secret meaning and read over the word limit. So please try to stick to the word limit that we give. Most of our essays, the maximum word limit is 500 words for our academic statement and 250 words for our personal statement. So please try to stick to those word limits. That's going to make us happy reviewers, and that's going to hopefully make you guys happy candidates on the other end when you're receiving your decision. Should you or should you not use ChatGPT? The answer is you can use ChatGPT as a tool, but as reviewers, we can tell when you have fully submitted a ChatGPT essay and we don't like that. It really doesn't show us anything about you. It doesn't tell us anything about you. And so, we tend to grade ChatGPT essays harder than we would grade, a human written essay. So show us that you're human. Show us that you've lived a life. Even if you think that it's not that exciting of a life, it's more exciting than a computer's life. So show us that you have done and explored life and put some thought into your essay. And if you're curious about what the prompts may be, you can view them all on our website now before you even start an application. So if you're curious about what they are, just visit our website and check the admission page for the program that you're interested in, and you can view all of the prompts there. And personal and academic statements are a great way to show your skills in academics, analytics, leadership, engagement, career goals, and communication. So academic statements and personal statements are very important because they really get back into that diagram area of those super duper important areas that we're grading you on. Something that's also really important that you can put into your essays is research. Check out our program websites, read updates on our social media and our forums. So follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We do a lot of posting there, so we highly recommend that you follow us there. If your country doesn't have access to Instagram or Facebook, we do also have access and utilize social media sites in other countries as well, so look for us there. Attend our events in person if you can, or virtually as well. And then we highly recommend that you speak to admission advisors and student ambassadors. We're getting our student ambassadors trained right now. They just started school a week ago, so they should be hopefully taking appointments within the next couple of weeks. And another question that we get asked frequently, you'll see that there are optional essays on the application. And so you do have the option to include optional essays. So the question that I get is optional materials really optional? And the answer is yes, for most. So the only time that I really recommend a student fill out an optional essay is if there is something in your application that is generally, something that you want to explore further, explain further, or there is just, you've reached that maximum word limit on the essays or on your resume, and you just want to be able to discuss it further. Then utilize those optional essays. Additionally, if you've had any gap years, maybe a low GPA, a low test score, and you want to discuss that in an optional essay as well, you can do that. Additionally, there is a scholarship essay that is optional. However, if you do want to be seriously considered for scholarship, I always recommend that you fill out the essay portion of the scholarship section, because that is really going to show that you are interested and really, really, really want to be considered for scholarship. So when talking about scholarships, in order to be considered for scholarship, you do need to fill out this portion of the application. There's going to be a financial aid section on the application. It's very tiny, but in order to be considered for a Gies scholarship, you do need to click this button that says, I would like to apply for a Gies scholarship. You click yes. And then from there, you'll have on that side panel, Gies scholarship application that will pop up automatically. So there's no other separate application that you have to fill out, that you have to find on our website or anything. It automatically populates when you click yes in this application, okay? So whenever you're doing this, you can click here to confirm that you understand our scholarship acknowledgements, and you can indicate a minimum scholarship amount that would help you start graduate school. Now, please note that we cannot pay for full tuition or anything really above 50%. But if you indicate an amount, that can help us determine, what would help get the student here. And then down here again at the bottom, if you see optional, please feel free to share any additional information to showcase your eligibility. That is that optional essay portion. So again, if you really want to be considered for scholarship, that is where we would recommend you fill that portion out. So next section is going to be your video essay. So we're really just moving kind of sequentially through the application here. Your video essay is something that students can get nervous about, but we really want to make sure that you guys aren't nervous about this. It is a simple process. It's awkward, but it's basically what I'm doing right now. I'm talking to a bunch of, blank faces. Obviously, I know you guys are listening hopefully on the other side. But essentially you're talking to yourself, you're answering 3 randomly assigned questions, and you're given 30 seconds to read through the questions and prepare. Then you have 3 minutes to answer and respond to all of those questions. So it's not 3 minutes for each individual question. It is 3 minutes for all 3. So keep that in mind. You do have 2 attempts. If you don't like the first attempt, you get to try your second attempt. But keep in mind, if you don't like your second attempt, that second attempt is automatically submitted. So you want to make sure that, even if your first attempt isn't that bad, your second attempt could be worse. So if you're like, I actually didn't mind my first attempt, submit it. It doesn't hurt, and things happen. So that's kind of what I recommend. Pretend like your first attempt is your only attempt, because that way you're going to give your best effort on that first attempt. But the main things that we can recommend for your video essay is to have a clean, quiet background with no interruptions. It's so hard to see students having people in the background coming through for their video essays, or having, loud noises, sometimes with some parents peeking in. Obviously the parents want to be involved, but it's distracting for us, and it can of course be distracting for you all. So try to have a clean, quiet background whenever you are, doing your video essay. That's going to be most helpful for you and for us. And relax, be yourself, and please don't read from a script. Obviously some of these these questions are things that you've been asked before. We're going to ask about your career goals, what type of teamwork philosophy you have, group work philosophy, and your program research. So what makes you most excited to attend the University of Illinois? What are you most excited about? The business analytics program? What course are you most excited to take? Things like that. So we're not going to try to really stump you. But the worst thing you can do, in my opinion, is to read from a script, because then how am I supposed to have confidence that you will be a good interviewee whenever job application season time is up? So just keep that in mind. For letters of recommendation, references, request early, request now. You don't want to have a delay come up. A lot of students will request maybe during winter break or something like that, whenever they think professors will have a lot of time. But professors want a break too. And so they're not going to want to spend their entire break writing you a letter. So request early, and most importantly, actually email them or talk to them in person to ask before you put their email address down and have it come from us and say, the University of Illinois Gies College of Business has requested that Brian write you a letter of recommendation, or Brian get a letter of recommendation from you. They're going to be like, well, they didn't ask me, and so now I'm busy and I don't have time. Ask first. That's always so important whenever you are, dealing with letters of recommendation. And something that's also really, really important that I get asked a lot is, do I ask the CEO of the company to write me a letter? Or could I ask my, assistant professor? Obviously, if your assistant professor knows you better, have them write you a letter. If the CEO has no idea who you are, they're not going to be able to write you a good letter. And we're not impressed necessarily by titles and, that kind of thing. We really want to know and see a letter from people that know you, as opposed to someone very, very high up that doesn't know you. So don't worry about the title of the person. We really want to have letters from people that know you. Letters should come on letterhead from the company or from professional emails. So keep that in mind. And if all of this is a lot and you're like, wow, I really still want to submit things, if I feel like maybe there's limits on things that I can submit, maybe my resume is limited, or my essays are limited, or my video essay is limited, you can submit additional materials as well. So whenever you are going through your application, you can submit additional materials at the end. So if there's a Coursera course or a Udemy course or Google Classroom, anything that you took, LinkedIn Learning, that you want to upload to your application to let us, see that you've done additional work, you can absolutely do that on the additional materials upload page. Published work, or any additional essays if you'd like to share anything with us like that. Discussing English proficiency requirements, I've laid out our minimum requirements for TOEFL, IELTS, and Duolingo. We are accepting Duolingo permanently, so no need to worry about that. And keep in mind, if you do not meet this full status requirement here, which for TOEFL is a 103, IELTS is a 7.5, and Duolingo is a 135, you can be admitted on a limited status score. So anything in between the range of limited and full status, you can be admitted on, and even anything above full status, of course. But anything in between that limited and full status range would mean that you would need to take an English proficiency test whenever you arrive to campus. And that English proficiency test could determine that you need to take English as a second language courses during your program. So a lot of times students will try to get a full status score. But absolutely, if your English score is below full status, but above that limited status, you can still be admitted on that school. All right, I have some application deadlines for you. So this is now a time where students take a lot of screenshots. So I'll try to put on a pretty face for when I'm stuck in a screenshot forever. But for MS Accounting, the next deadline we have is going to be October 31st. That final deadline is specifically for international students seeking an initial visa. I wanted to put that up there because that is an important deadline, but they do have deadlines for non-international students as well. So if you're not an international student but interested in MSA, you can still apply after February 28th. I just wanted to put that out there because I know that that is an important deadline. So I wanted to make sure students were aware of that one. If you're interested in the accounting science program, next deadline is going to be March 1st. But also accounting science does have a spring round as well. So and I believe that deadline is going to be September 15th, but perhaps Brian can put that in the chat for the spring deadline for accounting science if he's hearing me. Brian's spring deadline for accounting science. Next deadline for business analytics, management, and technology management is going to be October 31st. So that one's coming up here in about 2 months. Finance, that September 15th deadline is going to be for spring applications. So if you're interested in the finance program for spring, and then for January 19th, that is the next deadline for fall applications. So that column is a little off there, but there's not a great way for us to distinguish that there. So just keeping that in mind there. And then financial engineering, next deadline for that program is going to be December 31st. Okay, and then finally, meeting with us. So if you would like to meet with any of us, you can scan here to connect with our admission advisors. That's this this QR code to my left, essentially your right, card telling. Scan to connect with our admission advisors. We meet one-on-one with students frequently, so you're more than welcome to schedule meetings with us. And then within the coming weeks, we will have appointments available with our student ambassadors. Right now, we do have one MSA student who has worked with us over the summer, who's available to meet with students, and you can schedule with him. But also we have finance students available as well. Thank you, Brian, so much for putting those MAS spring deadlines in there for me. I knew my slide was a little incorrect, so thank you for that. We do have some finance students available to meet with incoming or interested students as well, but we will have management, business analytics, and technology management students available to meet with you all within the next couple of weeks before the end of the month. So if you're interested in meeting with them, you are more than welcome to scan this QR code, save it, bookmark it, so that way it's ready for you whenever they are ready to meet with you. And we'll also send out an email whenever they're ready to meet with you all as well. All right, and also here is our email address. It's grad@business.illinois.edu, as well as our Instagram page and then our Facebook page as well, if you guys would like to follow us there. And then I do have a couple minutes for any questions. Brian, were there any questions in the chat that we didn't get to? I see there's one question. I assume the difficulty to get into each program goes up with each passing round. That's a great question. It really depends, but of course, when you think about it, yes, when you're applying for that first round, all the seats are open, right? So no seats have been taken yet. While we still hold the same admission standards for every single round that we admit for, a good candidate will be admitted no matter what round they apply, right? So if you're a great candidate, we're going to want you even if you apply in the fourth round. So thinking about it that way, yes and no. But if you are maybe borderline, then, you know, it could be a little bit more difficult as our seats fill up a little bit, you know, later on. So that's a great question.
A couple more questions on letters of recommendation. My manager at the time of internship resigned and her professional outlook is not operational. Should I ask her to submit LOR from her new company's email or personal? And then also, can I submit several recommendations as my professor may be too busy to submit it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So if you had a supervisor from a job and they've since left that job, if they're willing to write you a letter from their current employer's letterhead, that's okay. But generally that's kind of confusing for us if you have a letterhead, if you have a letter, let's say from Deloitte, but you've never worked at Deloitte. So that is kind of confusing for us a little bit. So if you can, if they can explain it somewhere in the letter, you know, currently I work at Deloitte, but when I knew Brian, they worked at PwC or something like that. So yes, that's okay as long as they are comfortable with it. And then the next question about multiple letters, if professors are busy, yes, that's perfectly fine. Most programs have a certain number that they're looking for, maybe 2 or 3 letters of recommendation. But if you want to ask more than what is required, you can absolutely do that. That kind of covers your bases just to make sure that you get the specific number that you need. But keep in mind, we will specifically start reviewing applications. Most programs do whenever your application is complete. So if you are waiting on one letter, but you already have, you know, the 2 that we require already, we might start reviewing your application potentially without that letter. So if that is a person that you really, really want to write you a letter, just make sure that, you know, they know that and that they can get that in for you. So great question. All right, everyone, we are at time. I saw someone asked about if we're going to get a recording of this session. So I think we did a pretty good job. So generally, as long as I don't mess up, we send out the recordings. And so, yeah, as long as this one, everything went well with the recording and the internet saves it and likes it and the the Zoom gods are with us today, then we should be able to have this recording saved. So if you would like it, you can send a copy or you can send an email to us. The email is my Zoom name here, grad@business.illinois.edu. And we can send you that over as soon as it's done processing, usually within the next business day or so. But it was so great to see everyone on this webinar, and so great to see so many excited people ready to start their applications and get the application season rolling. So again, thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you, Brian, for answering the questions in the chat. I'm sure the students greatly appreciate it. I know I appreciate it. We look forward to receiving all of your applications very, very soon. If any questions were not answered, please feel free to email us and we'll be getting back to you as soon as possible. And check out our website for additional events that we have coming up in the near future. Thanks, everyone. Bye.